Hello, my name is Dustin Gregory, and today is August 5th, 2019, and we are down in Renton, Washington, and today we're going to learn about doors. More specifically, how to mortise for a hinge or other pieces of hardware for your door. Now, what is a mortise? A mortise, simply put, is a recess for a piece of hardware. It could be a hinge in this instance here, but there's other pieces of hardware that we mortise for on the job. Places that we would do this, it could be at home, honestly. You could have a door at home and you got to replace the door and you got to jam and you got to blank and you got to do some mortising. And when we do that, the first step of mortising is really laying out where the stuff goes. You have a couple of options. Traditionally, carpenters would take a tape measure, write down a piece of paper, the locations of the top and bottom of the hinges, all the way down, record that on something, and then take it to the door, and take your tape and mark that out. Now, that is one way to do it. I find, however, there's another way that could be more accurate. The problem comes when you come over here to lay out with your tape measure, is sometimes the hinge lands in between marks on your tape. And so what do you write down on your paper? You write down 6 3/4 heavy. Do you write 6 3/4 plus? Now you're guessing a little bit. So what I like to use is a story pole. A story pole can be made up of anything. This just happens to be a little piece of 1/4 inch plywood. It could be a 1x2, or it could be a ripped down piece of 3/4 plywood. It can be made out of anything, really, as long as it's fairly straight. You simply take this up here and butt it to the frame, and you just mark the edge, or the top and bottom, I should say, of the hinge, just like that. There's no in between, there's no guessing, it's just that is exactly what it is. And I find this method to be more accurate, okay? So after you've got this here, laid it out on flush, or on tight to the top of the jam, we'll come over here, and we're gonna transfer this layout onto the door. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is, what is the reveal that I want around the door? In this instance, I want an 1/8 inch, which is common. So I'm going to hold this, or I can make a mark on here actually, of 1/8 inch, right there. Now I know I hold that pass onto that mark, and once I'm good there, I transfer these marks onto the door itself. Now, if I was doing the full door, I would do all 3 hinges, but in this instance, I'm just doing a demonstration. We're just going to do one. Now, the next question is, when you grab your hinge, where does it go on the door? Does it go all the way flush to the outside? Do you hold it way in here? I mean, where does it go? So, on the door itself, we can see that this is the inside of the door, and it's back from this edge 1/4 inch, okay? And that is the common back set that you're gonna see out there, okay? That's the most common. I've mortised plenty of hinges, and they were all 1/4 inch, okay? Now that we know that's 1/4 inch from the face of the door is 1 3/4 inches thick, the same as that one. So if I'm 1/4 inch from the face of this door to the edge of the hinge, that's gonna be right. So we'll come over here, and I'll hook that face of the door, and I'll make a 1/4 inch mark here, and I will make a 1/4 inch mark there. Now we're ready to mark out for our hinge. So we'll line up on the marks we made for top and bottom. We line up on the marks we made for the edge, and now it's good. We simply mark that out. Now, when you're marking that out, I don't know if you can see, but this pencil here is pretty stinking sharp. You're going to want a very sharp utensil to mark this out. You're going to want to have either a real sharp carpenter's pencil, or a lot of times I would use a mechanical pencil. You can even go as far as to use a razor knife and hold that down and make sure you're pulling away from yourself, and you can score that with the razor knife as well. That's the most accurate way, okay? So now that I have the layout done, I set these things aside, and now it's time to do some chiseling. Now, I have a sharp chisel here. There's a couple different kinds. You got a sharp chisel and you got a dull chisel. okay? I'm gonna start with the sharp one. Now, if we take the chisel and line it up just inside the line, now what you wanna make sure of is the chisel has a beveled face and a flat face. This beveled face always needs to be in to the mortise area, okay? So I simply line that up, give her a good hit. I'm staying inside of my line about a 1/16 of an inch. Do the same thing here. And then now we'll work along this edge. Now when you're doing the edge here, you don't have to hit it quite as hard when you're going with the grain as you did when you were doing the cross grain, okay? Or you'll go too far. Now that we've gotten that, it's time to do a little mortising. So we'll take the chisel with the beveled face to the wood and just start peeling her off of there. Now, I got a sharp chisel here, and even with the sharp chisel, it's a little bit of a challenge at times. But I did tell you there was 2 different kinds of chisels. So I want to show you the difference between a sharp chisel and a dull chisel. So that was a sharp chisel. When we do this with the dull chisel, it takes a lot more effort to get it. And what that problem with that is, it's really easy to slip and chip off a face of the door, and that would be not good, okay? So we want to use sharp chisels. Not only would it chip the door, but it also could very easily hurt yourself because you're trying so hard to get that wood to come out. So sharp chisels are very important. You know, as I'm going along here, I'm just kind of guessing exactly how deep I want to be. And when I think I'm getting close, I'm going to take my hinge over here and I'm going to give it a test run here and see where we're at. So we take the hinge, lay it down flat, just a little bit strong still. Just a little strong still. So I'll go a little deeper. Once you're happy with your depth, flushed up there, now we're going to switch, or we're going to start coming across this other side. Now the grain's turned on me, so it's wanting to come off in big chunks. You got to be careful of that. That's why I always make sure we score it real well. If you don't score it good enough, you'll get a whole chunk of it. We'll grab our hinge, and we'll test fit it here. Now, I'm just a little bit big here, or my hinge is just a little bit bigger than my opening, so I'm going to trim her down just a little bit. Nice and tight. That's how we like that. Now along the one edge, this is the most common area to have a problem. It's real easy when you're chiseling this to get your chisel into that and make it a real big gap. I got a little bit right there, but that's okay because I'm back from my line, so I can clean this edge up and make it just perfect, okay? You really want to have that tight all along here. It's really important, one of the most important things. So, we've learned how to mortise a hinge, but what is a mortise? A mortise simply is a recess in a door. In this instance, it's for a hinge. It could be for any piece of hardware, okay? What about what a backset is? A backset, it's the distance that the hinge is from the face of the door. That's the backset, okay? And so we learned about how to do a mortise. But what is a mortise? Let's review. A mortise is simply a recess for a piece of door hardware to go on the door or the jamb. What about a layout? How do we lay this out? There's two ways to do it. You can use a tape measure like this here, the traditional way, or you can use a straight edge like this that I used. I find this to be more accurate, okay? When we got the layout done and we've started using the chisel, which way should the chisel go when we're starting to push the wood? We want to make sure that we put the bevel side down on the wood. That allows us the leverage to control the depth of the cut. When you're using chisels, make sure you got a sharp one. A dull one is more likely to make errors when you're using the chisel. It's easier to slip, you're putting too much pressure in. And lastly, never chisel towards yourself. It's the biggest safety thing of all. When you chisel towards yourself and it slips, that's how we get hurt. Well, if we don't have any more questions, thank you very much, and let's go ahead and grab our door and start chiseling.